Begin with breaking news on the economy. A new jobs report is in. The U.S. adding 177,000 jobs in April. That's above expectations, but down sharply from March. So a mixed bag, especially as we track other fresh economic warning signs, much to do with President Trump's tariffs. GM lowering its 2025 outlook, expecting a $5 billion tariff hit. McDonald's reporting sales crater to the lowest level since 2020. Microsoft unveiling major price increases on all Xbox consoles and games. And as of today, shoppers will have to pay an import fee on cheap online goods. Plus, tomorrow, the auto tariffs go into effect. We'll explain why you may end up paying more, even if you already own a car. Let's break it all down with NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor in West Palm Beach, Florida, with the president. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans here in New York, and Axios chief economic correspondent Neil Irwin. Okay, Christine, take us through this jobs report. Good numbers all around. Can this rate of hiring continue and maybe cushion the impacts of the tariffs?
Look, the job market is resilient. And, you know, we ended last year and came into this year with a strong labor market, cooling, but still strong. And so I think that's good news considering all the uncertainty that is ahead here. An unemployment rate of 4.2%, that is near historic lows. You look under the hood here, you can see healthcare hiring a lot. You can see warehouses hiring. I wonder why. Because companies have been pulling forward a lot of their purchases of goods before tariffs. And then you look in also in these numbers, then federal workers, you see 9,000 federal workers lost jobs. This year, about 26,000. That's probably an undercount. And here's why. The government, even in this notice, says if you're sort of furloughed or you're still getting a paycheck, you're still counted as employed. So a lot of these people with buyouts are just not in these numbers yet. So this is a solid position to start from with a lot of tariff uncertainty happening right now.
Yamiche, what's the framing from the White House on these numbers?
Well, the White House is really looking at these numbers and saying that they're a boom for the economy, even if they are lower than last month, but they are higher than expected. So this is really a White House that is trying its best to come up with good messaging when it comes to the economy, given the fact that there's so much fear of a recession because of President Trump's tariff plans, as chaotic as they may be, as well as, of course, his escalating trade war with countries like China. So the White House is looking at these numbers and saying this is evidence that President Trump is doing the right thing. It's still, of course, a big question, sort of what the future of this economic plan is going to be and what the consequences of the president's policies are going to be.
Neil, the next jobs report will really be the first one that's surveying the landscape after the Trump tariffs. Can this hiring pace be sustained?
Maybe for a while, but, the truth is the U.S. economy is a slow-moving tanker ship. These things don't turn on a dime. If you're an employer, Liberation Day, the tariffs were announced on April 2nd. The reference week for this data we got today is basically the second week of April. But it's not as if you're going to fire a bunch of people just because of an announcement. It's not like you're going to suspend hiring. And, the question is May soon enough for those effects to start to take place? Might be May, might be more of a summer story. Again, slow moving things. And for the administration, you have the situation where anytime a good number comes out, they want to say this is the Trump economy. Anytime a bad number comes out, like this GDP number earlier in the week, it's all the Biden economy. So there is some kind of cherry picking going on in reading and parsing this data as it comes in.
Spin, spin, spin. Christine, tell us about this loophole that's apparently closed when it comes to cheaper goods and the impact this could have.
So if you've ever bought anything on Shein or Temu or even Amazon Haul, which is a really low-cost goods portal that it has, these are allowed because of something called a de minimis loophole, that companies were allowed to send things, just individual packages worth less than $800 directly to American consumers. So that's where all that really cheap stuff came directly from Chinese factories. And they closed that. The Trump administration closed that loophole, saying that it was good for American small business, that they shouldn't be able to compete with that really cheap stuff. So you can see, if you go to the Temu website, you can see the import charges put right now into your cart. So you can see exactly how much that costs. Shein prices going up. They all started that on Friday. And it was actually midnight when that loophole was officially closed. So those super ultra low cost products, I'm talking a whole set of sheets for $1.75, those days are over.
And I look at this graphic here and we see a price for shorts going up literally more than double because of the import charge, which is more than the cost of the good itself. Same there for, is that like a humidifier or something next to
and
it.
If you look,
it's
even
crazy.
outside,
A blender.
Even outside of this de minimis world, you know, when you're talking about 145% tariffs from Chinese goods, I mean, that means, you know, if you buy something worth $100, you're paying $145 in import prices. Maybe not you paying all of it, but all along the food chain, those prices are rising. So we'll be seeing that in days and weeks ahead.
Yamiche, there have been some developments, I understand, in the past 24 hours on trade talks, specifically regarding Japan and China. Where do things stand?
Well, this has been a really interesting and confusing situation because President Trump has maintained for a few days and weeks now that he was negotiating with China, but the Chinese officials have been clear that no negotiations were happening. Now we have new statements out. So China's Ministry of Commerce says the U.S. has recently conveyed information to China through relevant channels expressing a desire to start negotiations. If the U.S. wants to negotiate, it should show sincerity by preparing to take actions in correcting its mistakes and canceling the unilateral tariff. So there are the Chinese essentially saying, if you want to come to the table, you're going to have to take some actions here. But then we have a new statement also from the National Security Council. They're saying we are in constant communication with Chinese officials through normal diplomatic channels. And I should tell you, one of the things I've been asking the White House over and over again is, well, when was the last time that President Trump and the president of China spoke? Because the president has said a number of times that he's spoken to the president of China. And White House officials have made it clear that after these tariffs went into place, these two leaders have not spoken. So that is the Chinese have continued to maintain that. The U.S. officials have been a little bit vague on that. But now we have these new statements sort of saying where the things are right now.
And Neil, in the latest statement, China says the U.S. must cancel tariffs to start negotiations. Any chance you see that happening? What are you hearing?
You know, it's hard to parse what the president's going to do. The trademark of this administration so far has been the act of surprise and kind of erratic policymaking. So could they back down and make that a precursor to any serious negotiation? I wouldn't rule it out. At the same time, there has to be some de-escalation on some side. Everybody needs to save face. You know, this is kind of negotiating 101. Everybody has to say they're the winner, and everybody needs to help the other party find ways that both sides can say that they won the negotiation. And so we need to find some way for this de-escalation to happen. And the longer we have these 145% tariffs on China, the bigger the ultimate disruption will be to the U.S. economy. Because, right now we have inventories that we're running through that were imported pre-tariff. But the longer this goes, the fewer shipments that are coming from overseas, the more you might see some empty store shelves, some price inflation, things like that.
Yeah, we're already in a couple of